teacher if stacking piles of papers on the floor seems like a logical filing system to you. Yep. You might be a teacher if you know the best day before vacation lesson plans come from Blockbuster. You might be a teacher if you know the secretaries and custodians run the school. You might be a teacher if you want to slap the next person who says, must be nice to work from 8 to 3 and have summers off. You might be a teacher if you can't have children of your own because there's no name you could possibly give a child that wouldn't bring on high blood pressure the moment you were two. You might be a teacher if you add the definition when you use a big word. For example, the magnet will attract or pull together the paper clips. You might be a teacher if marking all A's on report cards would make your life so much simpler. You might be a teacher if meeting a child's parents automatically answers the question, why is this kid like this? Now, all of these are jokes, of course, but I believe they're funny because there's an ounce of truth to each and every one of them. This past year, I've come to better understand these statements and have learned many lessons that I'd like to pass on to you graduates so that hopefully you can make your first year of teaching as great of a success as mine was. This past year, I spent my time teaching 3rd and 4th grade at Palisades Christian Academy in Spokane, Washington. As a first-year teacher, you're constantly scrounging and grasping for any sort of resource you can find. Making extra copies of assignments and activities was one of the things I did the most. But when it actually came to finding a place for these things, I struggled a bit. So instead of piling papers on the floor, I had to devise a filing system that worked for me so that I could find those things when I needed them next. So I encourage you to have a good filing system because it can save you a lot of time in the future. So organize, organize, organize. Now I've come to understand that sometimes the best lesson plan actually does come from Blockbuster. Movies and videos are a lifesaver and help you keep your sanity. It is okay to sometimes just forget your lesson plans and just pop in a movie. Now, I didn't do this all the time, but on bad days it was nice to have the kids focus all their time and energy and attention on the movie instead of testing me and my boundaries. So I always had a movie on standby. I was fortunate enough to work at an amazing school with an amazing faculty and staff. My principal was the best and most supportive principal I could have asked for during my first year. I was also one of 8 teachers, so it was nice to have a lot of people around to give me words of wisdom and support me when I needed it most. But the one person who can really help you out next year is the administrative assistant. The one at my school was always there to give me a smile when I needed it and answer the phone calls of parents who would call and want to talk to me in the middle of the day. She would always handle the phone call with ease and graciously tell them that I was busy teaching their child and would call them back when I wasn't busy. The administrative assistant also knows the ins and outs of the copy machine and can help you out whenever you need it. Sometimes they also might have a secret candy stash that you can raid after a bad day for a little pick-me-up. So make friends with the administrative assistant because they honestly are the people who run the school. If you haven't figured it out already, I'm going to tell you, a teacher's job is never, ever finished. So people who say that we work from 8 to 3 and have all these vacations, they don't have a clue. Our job isn't like most jobs where when you leave everything behind. There is always a paper to grade, a lesson to plan, or a parent to call. Even while shopping at a store, you may see something and say, aha, that would go great in my classroom. But even though our job is never done, it isn't healthy to be consumed by it. So don't let your job take over your life. I was lucky enough to keep myself busy by planning my wedding in the evenings. So I encourage you to do something you love, or even find a new hobby, and do those things in the evenings instead of grading papers. Even a nice bubble bath can do the trick. Your mental health will thank you for it. Teachers work extremely hard, and we deserve every break we get. I don't have any children of my own yet because I just got married in March. But when that day comes, it will make my life so much easier. It will make it easier because when coming from the mouths of many parents this past year, a new teacher doesn't know or understand anything because they don't have kids of their own yet. If I got a nickel for every time I heard that statement this past year, I would be rich. But when hearing that statement, all you can do is just smile and nod and say, and think, well, when that day does actually come, I definitely won't be naming my child what you named yours. Unfortunately, since I heard that comment so many times, my list of those blood pressure raising names is pretty long. So I suggest carrying a baby name book in your back pocket. Now, being a teacher, you communicate with kids all day. Because of this, you completely lose your ability to speak like an adult. It is a strange transformation that everyone takes. I have found myself this past year over-explaining myself, asking my friends if they understand what I'm saying, and dumbing down big words. And I've also found it very hard to speak to adults, not as if they were my students. So I suggest that every day you find a way to at least have one adult conversation. Now, I already mentioned that there are always papers to grade or grades to do. But this past year, I found myself getting behind in some of my grading. So I found that it is okay to sometimes just put a sticker up or a stamp at the top that says great effort and just pass it back to them. Life is too short to be consumed with the constant paperwork, so sometimes marking all A's on assignments is great and it makes your life a lot simpler. Now, sometimes you may find that meeting a child's parents actually does answer that question, why does this kid act this way? This couldn't be any truer. You might find that your most difficult student might have the most difficult parent. My advice for that is to get the principal involved to help diffuse the problem at the first moment that you see it might be a continuing problem. You might be accused of having too high of expectations. You might find that when asking parents for suggestions for what works at home, they are unable to verbalize any suggestions for you. In spite of meeting parents and understanding why the child acts the way they do, for 7 hours a day, you are that child's teacher. You have an opportunity to give that child another point of view. So do the best job you can to make it a positive 7 hours. I hope that some of these suggestions were helpful to you, and congratulations on completing your degree and moving on to the next stage in your teaching career.
Amen.